Edward Huggins is one of the British slave owners. For his brutality, slaves started to run away from him. In one case, Huggins brought back four slaves who ran away. They were taken to the marketplace for public flogging. Of the four slaves, two were men and two women. Of the two men, one received 365 lashes and the other received 115 lashes. Of the two women, one received 110 lashes and the other woman was young and she received 291 lashes. She was flogged most cruelty and 2 days later she died. Huggins was guilty for this brutality and he was tried, but he was acquitted in 1810 because slaves were their personal property like horses, cattle, chattel, goods. Slaves were no better than animals to them. Online Encyclopedia of University College London. The legacies of British slave ownership also mention this incident. University College London mentioned Huggins as a notorious slave master. Huggins was a slave master in Nevis Island in the Caribbean. Nevis was then British colony. I am talking a bit about the history of inhumanity of mankind, the dark, dirty face under the mask of modernity, development, industrialization, renaissance, politics, art, and culture. Britain passed Slavery Act abolition in 1833 to free more than 800,000 slaves who were legal property of Britain's slave owners. There were more than 46,000 slave owners in Britain and across the vast empire of British. The then British government gave compensation to the slave owners for loss of their human property. The amount of compensation was 20 million pounds. 20 million pounds is equivalent today 13 billion pounds. It was the largest, biggest bailout in the history of Britain until 2009 bank bailout. But slaves got nothing from this enormous bailout. Moreover, slaves were compelled to provide 46 hours unpaid labor each week for their former master 4 more years. University College London conducted a widespread research on the legacies of British slave ownership. The names of the 46,000 slave owners and against how many slaves, how much compensation they received, specifically mentioned in the British National Archives. In the Compensation Commission archives, there were 46,000 slave owners who received then compensation in 1834. In Britain, slavery was abolished, at least in paper, 1834. In the slave owners' record, one of the larger slave owners was John Gladstone. His son, William Gladstone, became Prime Minister of Britain. John Gladstone owned 2,508 slaves and he was paid £106,769. 106,769 pounds is equivalent today more than 83 million pounds. John Gladstone owned 9 plantations in West India Interest. Charles Blair, ancestor of novelist George Orwell, received £4,442 compensation. In the slave owners' record who received compensations, there are many famous hidden names. There are surtitles before the name of many slave owners and their descendants. University College London record showed a distant ancestor of former Prime Minister of Britain, David Cameron, was a slave owner and he received £4,101. He owned 202 slaves. His name is Sir James Duff. James Duff was the son of one of Cameron's great grand uncle. David Cameron's wife, Samantha, also has slave owning links. Her ancestor, William Jolfe, also received more than £4,000. Evelyn Bazalgette, ancestor of Sir Peter Bazalgette, claimed £7,350 for his 420 slaves. About the University College London project on the legacies of British slave ownership, the Wikipedia report said they estimate that somewhere between 10 to 12% of Britain's wealthy can be identified as having had significant links to slavery.